Lieutenant Alex Mercer stared at the 7-foot-tall insectoid creature with what could only be described as unbridled skepticism. "We wish to evaluate your species' tactical camouflage capabilities," repeated Tick-Vex, his mandibles clicking together, in what the humans had come to recognize as mild impatience. "The Galactic Confederation requires a comprehensive assessment of all member species' military attributes." Alex sighed, rubbing the bridge of his nose. He'd been Earth's military liaison to the aliens for all of 8 weeks. And somehow, this wasn't even close to the strangest request he'd received. "Let me get this straight," Alex said, leaning against the sleek metal wall of the alien ship. "You guys, a spacefaring civilization with faster-than-light travel, matter conversion technology, and literal invisibility suits, want to test how well humans can hide?" Tick-Vex's compound eyes shifted colors slightly, a gesture Alex had learned, indicated confusion or perhaps mild offense. "All species have unique evolutionary adaptations," the alien replied with the patient tone one might use when explaining basic arithmetic to a particularly dense child. "Some rely on technology. Others possess natural abilities. The Releth, for example, can phase-shift their molecular density. The Quarans can perfectly mimic any surface they touch. And humans can what? Sweat profusely and make inappropriate jokes in tense situations?" Alex asked with a smirk. Another alien stepped forward. Zixna, a female of Tick-Vex's species with slightly more iridescent exoskeletal plating. "Our preliminary research indicates humans evolved as persistence hunters with notable environmental adaptation capabilities. We wish to observe these traits in a controlled setting." Alex glanced between the two aliens, then to the small contingent of human soldiers standing awkwardly nearby, clearly trying not to laugh. "Fine," he conceded. "But I'm telling you right now, we don't have any special abilities. We're just people." "Excellent." Tick-Vex's mandibles spread in what passed for a smile in his species. "The assessment will commence at 800 hours tomorrow. We have prepared a suitable terrestrial environment within Simulation Deck 7. As the aliens walked away, their chitinous legs making soft clicking sounds against the metal floor, Sergeant Olivia Barnes sidled up beside Alex. "So," she said, barely containing her amusement, "we're playing hide-and-seek with the aliens tomorrow." "Apparently," Alex replied, watching the retreating forms of their extraterrestrial hosts. "Better get some rest. Tomorrow we represent humanity's greatest evolutionary achievement, our ability to, I don't know, crouch behind rocks, I guess." Barnes snorted. "Well, at least it beats filling out those anatomical survey forms from last week. I still can't believe they needed 37 different measurements of my earlobes." The suitable terrestrial environment turned out to be an impressively accurate recreation of an Earth forest, complete with genuine soil, trees, underbrush, and even a small stream running through the middle. The simulation deck was massive, easily the size of a football stadium, with some sort of alien technology making it appear to extend even further into the distance. Alex stood at the entrance alongside Barnes and the other 3 human representatives, Lieutenant Dylan Alley, Specialist Zoe Kim, and Corporal Marcus Wellington. Facing them were not just Tick-Vex and Zixna, but also representatives from at least a dozen other alien species, all apparently keen to observe human camouflage techniques. "I feel like I'm in an interstellar zoo," Alley muttered under his breath. "Technically, you are," replied a bulbous, gelatinous alien to his left, its voice somehow emanating from a body with no discernible mouth. "Though we prefer the term xenobiological observation arena," Alley jumped slightly. You understood what I said." "Universal translators," the blob explained cheerfully, a small device floating within its translucent body pulsing with each word. "Standard protocol for all Confederation assessment procedures." Before O'Malley could respond, Tick-Vex stepped forward, addressing the assembled aliens and humans. "We will proceed with Protocol 47B, Camouflage and Concealment Assessment," he announced formally. The human subjects will be given 30 Earth minutes to conceal themselves within the simulation environment, after which our observation team will attempt to locate them using standard visual scanning protocols. Zixna approached the humans carrying what looked like a tray of small metallic discs. "These are biome monitors that will track your vital signs during the exercise," she explained, distributing one to each human. "Please affix them to your sternum." Alex attached his monitor, then looked expectantly at Tikvex. "So, what are the rules here? What equipment can we use?" "You may utilize any resources available within the environment," Tikvex explained. "As this is an assessment of your species' natural capabilities, we have not provided any technological aids. Right?" Alex said, looking around at the forest. "And what exactly are you expecting us to do? Just hide?" Several of the alien observers exchanged what seemed to be amused glances, at least as far as Alex could interpret the body language of beings with such wildly different physiologies. "We are expecting you to demonstrate your species-evolved camouflage techniques," said a tall, willowy alien with pale blue skin and 4 arms. "Based on our research, humans possess remarkable adaptive capabilities in this regard." Alex looked at his fellow humans who all wore expressions ranging from confusion to barely suppressed laughter. "I think there's been a misunderstanding," he began carefully. "Humans don't have any special camouflage abilities. We're not chameleons or octopuses. We can't change color or shapeshift." Now it was the alien's turn to look confused. A squat, rocky-looking being with glowing crystalline protrusions stepped forward. "But our historical research indicates humans have demonstrated exceptional camouflage abilities throughout your military history." It rumbled in a voice like grinding stones. "Your warriors are documented applying pigmentation to their epidermis and attaching local flora to their bodies to achieve near-perfect environmental integration." Barnes suddenly burst out laughing quickly, turning it into an unconvincing cough when Alex shot her a glare. "Wait," Alex said, realization dawning. "Are you talking about face paint and ghillie suits? That's not a natural ability. That's just stuff we make." The aliens looked even more confused, now several of them conferring in hushed tones. "Is the application of external substances not a natural process for your species?" Zixna asked, genuinely puzzled. Alex opened his mouth to respond, then closed it again, unsure how to explain that smearing mud on your face wasn't exactly an evolutionary adaptation. "You know what?" he said finally, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. "You're absolutely right. Humans have amazing natural camouflage abilities. We just need a little time to activate them." 30 minutes, you said." Tikvex's compound eyes brightened. "Indeed. We look forward to observing your species' natural adaptations." As the aliens retreated to an observation platform at the edge of the forest simulation, Barnes leaned in close to Alex. "What exactly are you planning?" she whispered. Alex's grin widened. "They want to see primitive human camouflage. Let's give them a show they'll never forget." 29 minutes later, Alex was putting the finishing touches on what could generously be called a mudsuit. He had systematically covered himself from head to toe in the dark, wet soil from the stream bank, leaving only small openings for his eyes, nostrils, and mouth. Around him, his fellow humans had embraced the absurdity of the situation with impressive creativity. Barnes had created a surprisingly effective ghillie suit from branches, leaves, and grass. Allie had partially submerged himself in the stream, using reeds as breathing tubes. Kim had smeared her face and exposed skin with mud and charcoal from a fire she'd somehow managed to start, then positioned herself in the shadow of a large tree. Wellington had gone the most extreme route, digging a shallow pit and covering himself with leaves and branches until only his eyes were visible. "This is the stupidest thing I've ever done in my military career," Barnes whispered as she adjusted a branch on her improvised suit. "Stupider than the time you had to explain to the Admiral why there was a goat in the officer's mess?" Alex shot back. "I told you never to mention that again," she hissed, but he could hear the smile in her voice. A soft chime echoed through the forest, signaling the end of their preparation time. "Showtime," Alex whispered, settling deeper into his position among the roots of a large tree. "Remember, try to stay completely still. Let's see how long it takes these supposedly advanced aliens to find 5 mud-covered idiots." As it turned out, the answer was a surprisingly long time. 2 hours into the search, the alien observation team was still methodically making its way through the forest, scanning with what appeared to be highly sophisticated technology, yet somehow missing the humans hiding in plain sight. Alex remained perfectly still as Tikvex and a floating tentacled creature he hadn't seen before passed within 3 m of his position. The aliens were talking in low, concerned tones, their universal translators allowing Alex to eavesdrop. "This is most perplexing," Tikvex was saying, his mandibles clicking in agitation. "Our bioscanners indicate the humans are definitely within this environment, yet we cannot visually locate them. Perhaps they possess some form of psionic cloaking we were unaware of," suggested the floating alien, its tentacles waving in apparent frustration. "Impossible. Our preliminary scans show—" "No. I fear we may have underestimated their camouflage abilities significantly." The 2 aliens moved on, continuing their increasingly frustrated search. Alex allowed himself a small, silent chuckle. If only his drill sergeant could see him now. The man who'd once failed a camouflage exercise so spectacularly. He was spotted within 30 seconds, was now apparently invisible to advanced alien technology. Another hour passed. Alex's muscles were screaming from remaining motionless for so long, but the growing consternation of the alien search parties made the discomfort worthwhile. At one point, Zixna actually stepped directly on Wellington's camouflaged pit, causing a brief moment of panic among the humans. But the alien merely paused, looked down in mild confusion, then continued on her way. Finally, after nearly 4 hours of fruitless searching, a loud, ship-wide announcement echoed through the forest. "Attention all observation team members. Assessment Protocol 47B will now enter Phase 2. Human subjects are requested to reveal themselves." Alex remained still, exchanging glances with Barnes, who was visible from his position about 20 meters away. She raised an eyebrow questioningly. Alex grinned and shook his head slightly. Not yet. Another 15 minutes passed before a notably more agitated announcement came. "Human representatives, please acknowledge and reveal your positions. The assessment phase has concluded." Alex finally decided they'd had enough fun. Slowly, he stood up from his hiding place, chunks of dried mud cracking and falling from his body as he stretched his stiff limbs. The reaction was immediate and deeply satisfying. Tikvex, who happened to be nearby, actually jumped backward, his compound eyes flashing rapidly through a kaleidoscope of colors. "By the 7 moons, the alien exclaimed. "You were there the entire time?" "Yep," Alex replied casually, brushing more mud from his uniform. "Just doing what humans do best, adapting to our environment." One by one, the other humans revealed themselves, each emergence prompting similar reactions of shock and disbelief from the nearest aliens. Wellington's reveal was particularly dramatic. The earth itself seemed to come alive as he burst up from his shallow grave of leaves and dirt, causing a gelatinous alien observer to literally quiver in alarm. As the humans gathered together, looking like creatures from some prehistoric swamp, with their mud-covered bodies and improvised leaf coverings, the alien observation team surrounded them, chattering excitedly in a variety of languages that their translators struggled to keep up with. Remarkable. Unprecedented. Did you see how the tall one blended with the tree bark? The aquatic concealment technique was particularly impressive. Zixna approached Alex, her compound eyes fixed on him with what appeared to be newfound respect. "Lieutenant Mercer, we owe you and your team an apology," she said, mandibles clicking softly. We severely underestimated your species' camouflage capabilities. Alex exchanged amused glances with his mud-caked colleagues. No apology necessary. Happy to showcase what humans can do with a little creativity. But I must ask, Tikvex interjected, stepping forward. How did you neutralize our bioscanners? We could detect your presence in the general area, but precise localization was impossible. Alex blinked, genuinely surprised. We didn't do anything to your scanners. We just covered ourselves in mud and stayed really still. There was a long moment of silence as the aliens processed this information. Are you suggesting, began the rocky alien with crystal protrusions, that your advanced camouflage technique consists entirely of applying local sediment to your epidermis and remaining motionless? Pretty much, O'Malley confirmed with a shrug. That's basically how our ancestors hunted and avoided predators for thousands of years before we developed technology. The aliens exchanged glances again, this time with what Alex interpreted as mild embarrassment. We may have overthought this assessment, Zixna admitted. The debriefing session following the camouflage exercise took place in one of the ship's conference rooms, where the humans, now cleaned up, but still finding mud in places they'd rather not mention, sat across from a panel of alien scientists and military observers. To summarize our findings, Tikvex was saying, reading from some sort of holographic display, human camouflage techniques, while technologically primitive, demonstrate remarkable effectiveness through their simplicity and utilization of available environmental resources. Translation: Dirt works, O'Malley whispered to Kim, who stifled a giggle. Of particular note, Tikov continued, is the human's ability to recognize and exploit the limitations of advanced scanning technology. By correctly identifying that our bioscanners would detect their presence but struggle with precise localization when confronted with environmentally integrated subjects, they effectively rendered our technological advantage moot. Alex raised his hand. Actually, we didn't know anything about your scanners. We just did what humans have been doing for thousands of years. This caused another ripple of consternation among the aliens. You mean to say this was not a deliberately executed counter-kinological strategy? Asked a tall Avan alien with iridescent feathers and what appeared to be cybernetic enhancements around its eyes. Nope, Barnes replied cheerfully. Just good old-fashioned playing in the mud. The Avan alien made a whistling sound that the translator didn't even attempt to interpret, but which Alex suspected was something akin to disbelief. Zixna leaned forward, her compound eyes focused intently on the humans. This raises a fascinating question. If your species can achieve such effective concealment with merely primitive improvised methods, what might you accomplish with access to Confederation? Level technology? There was an uncomfortable silence as both humans and aliens contemplated this question. Well, Alex said finally, breaking the tension with a grin, I guess you'll just have to make us members of your Confederation and find out. The joke fell, somewhat flat as several of the alien observers exchanged concerned glances. That is precisely what we are attempting to determine, Tikvex replied seriously. These assessment protocols are designed to evaluate your species' readiness for Confederation membership, particularly your military capabilities, and how they might integrate with our existing defense structures. Alex's smile faded slightly. Wait, so this whole thing was actually important? I thought it was just some sort of bureaucratic box-checking exercise. All Confederation protocols serve vital purposes, Zixna explained. Your performance today will be factored into humanity's overall assessment score. Barnes leaned over to Alex. So, did we just ace an interstellar pop quiz by playing in the mud? I believe you did, answered the gelatinous alien, its translator once again picking up the whispered comment. Your species' approach to the exercise was unorthodox but undeniably effective. The Confederation values adaptability and resourcefulness, as much as technological advancement. Well, if there's one thing humans are good at, it's being unorthodox, Wellington chimed in, picking a last bit of leaf from behind his ear. Tikvex made a gesture with his upper limbs that caused the holographic display to shift to a new screen filled with alien symbols. We have now completed 17 of the 33 required assessment protocols, he announced. Tomorrow we will proceed with Protocol 18, Emergency Resource Allocation and Utilization. What does that involve? Kim asked wearily. A simulated emergency scenario in which you must demonstrate your species' ability to allocate limited resources under pressure, Zixna explained. It is a relatively straightforward exercise, given what had just happened with the supposedly straightforward camouflage assessment. Alex wasn't particularly reassured. Before we conclude, Tikvex said, do you humans have any questions about today's exercise or the assessment process in general? The 5 humans exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Yeah, I've got one, Ali said, raising his hand. How is it possible that a species advanced enough to travel between stars couldn't find 5 humans covered in mud in a fake forest? Later that evening, in the human quarters aboard the alien vessel, the 5 representatives of Earth were celebrating their unexpected success with contraband beer that Ali had somehow managed to smuggle on board. To Mud, Barnes proposed a toast, raising her bottle. Humanity's greatest technological achievement. To Mud, the others echoed, clinking their bottles together. Alex took a long swig, then leaned back in his chair. You know what the craziest part is? I think we genuinely impressed them today. Hard not to be impressed by superior human ingenuity, Wellington said with mock pomposity, striking a heroic pose that was somewhat undermined by the beer stain on his shirt. Superior human stubbornness, more like, Kim corrected. My back is killing. Me from standing still for 4 hours? Worth it, though, Ali chuckled. Did you see Tikvex's face, or whatever you call that insect thing he has when you stood up, Alex? I thought he was going to molt on the spot. The thing I can't figure out, Barnes said, twirling her bottle thoughtfully, is why they expected so much from us in the first place. We're talking about aliens who can literally bend light around their ships, and they thought we would have some impressive natural camouflage ability. I think I've got a theory about that, Alex said, setting his beer down. Remember how Tikvek mentioned their historical research on humans? I bet they've been observing Earth for centuries, watching our military evolution from primitive tribal warfare to modern combat. So, O'Malley prompted, what else might they have misunderstood about us? Before anyone could respond to this sobering thought, there was a soft chime from the door, followed by the entrance of Zixna. The humans hastily tried to hide their beers, but the alien either didn't notice or chose to ignore them. Lieutenant Mercer, she said, compound eyes fixed on Alex. Might I have a word in private? Alex glanced at his colleagues, who all displayed varying degrees of "You're on your own, buddy," in their expressions. Sure, he replied, setting down his beer and following Zixna into the corridor outside. The alien led him to a small observation deck overlooking Earth, the blue-green planet glowing magnificently against the blackness of space. For a moment, they both stood in silence, admiring the view. It's beautiful, Zixna said finally. Your world? Yeah, Alex agreed. It really is. I wish to speak with you away from official channels, the alien continued, her translator giving her voice a slightly hushed quality. Today's assessment has caused discussions among the Confederation representatives. Alex raised an eyebrow. Good discussions or bad discussions? Both, I believe, Zixner replied. Some observers were impressed by your adaptability and resourcefulness. Others were concerned by the implications. Concerned about mud? Alex asked skeptically. Zixna's mandibles clicked in what he'd come to recognize as a gesture of mild frustration. Not about the mud specifically, Lieutenant Mercer. About what your approach represents. Most species we encounter rely heavily on their technology or evolved. Biological advantages. The Qurans cannot survive without their chameleonic abilities. The Releth depend on their phase shifting to evade predators on their home world and humans. Humans appear to rely on neither advanced technology nor significant biological advantages. Yet you succeed nonetheless, Zixna stated. You adapt. You improvise, you overcome limitations that would other species. Alex shrugged. That's just being human. Precisely, Zixna said, her compound eyes shifting to a deeper hue. And that is what concerns some members of the Confederation. A species that can achieve so much with so little. What might you become with access to our technology? Would you still be the same humans, or would you evolve into something unpredictable? There was something in her tone that made Alex pause. Are you saying that some of the Confederation members are afraid of us? Not afraid, Zixna corrected quickly. Cautious. There is a difference. Doesn't feel like much of a difference from where I'm standing, Alex replied, gazing out at Earth. Zixna's mandibles clicked softly. I am telling you this not to alarm you, but because I believe your species deserves a chance to prove itself. The remaining assessment protocols will be challenging. Some may have been deliberately designed to exploit what the Confederation perceives as human weaknesses. Why are you telling me this? Alex asked, studying the alien's insectoid features, for any sign of deception, though he wasn't sure he could recognize it if he saw it. Because, Zixna replied, I have lived among your people for nearly an Earth year now. I have observed your capacity for both great destruction and remarkable compassion. I believe humanity belongs among the stars, Lieutenant Mercer, but not everyone shares my view. She turned to leave, then paused. Tomorrow's resource allocation exercise will test more than your logistical skills. It will test your ethics. Remember that. With that cryptic warning, she left, leaving Alex alone on the observation deck, staring at Earth and wondering just what they'd gotten themselves into. The next morning, the human team gathered in the simulation deck once again, this time facing a very different scenario. Instead of a forest, they found themselves in what appeared to be a recreation of a small Earth settlement, a collection of simple structures arranged around a central square with various supplies and equipment scattered. Throughout, Tikvek stood before them, flanked by several other alien observers. Protocol 18, Emergency Resource Allocation and Utilization, he announced formally. Your objective is to assess the available resources and allocate them optimally to ensure survival. Survival against what? Wellington asked, eyeing the settlement wearily. The scenario simulates the aftermath of a natural disaster, Zixna explained, stepping forward. Your settlement has been cut off from external assistance. You must manage food, water, shelter, and medical supplies for a population of 50 individuals for a period of 30 Earth days. Alex glanced around at the supplies visible in the settlement. They seemed deliberately inadequate for the task described. And where are these 50 individuals we're supposed to be managing? He asked. In response, Tikvex activated a device on his wrist, and suddenly, the settlement was populated with holographic humans of various ages, some appearing injured or distressed. Our simulation technology will allow these constructs to respond realistically to your decisions, he explained. They experience simulated hunger, thirst, pain, and emotional distress. Barnes frowned. So, we're playing a life or death version of The Sims. I am unfamiliar with this reference, Tikvex replied. But if it involves resource management under survival conditions, then perhaps it is similar. You have 6 Earth hours to develop and implement your resource management strategy, Zixna added. The simulation will then accelerate to model the full 30-day period based on your decisions. With that, the aliens retreated to their observation platform, leaving the 5 humans standing in the center of the holographic settlement. Anyone else getting the feeling this is another test that's not exactly what it seems? O'Malley muttered. Zixna warned me last night, Alex said quietly, explaining his private conversation with the alien. She said this would test our ethics, not just our logistics. Great, Kimmy. So, we're supposed to make life or death decisions about holographic people while aliens judge our moral character. We've got no choice but to play along, Alex replied. Let's start by inventorying what we've got to work with. The team spread out, systematically cataloging the available resources. As they'd suspected, the supplies were woefully inadequate. Enough food for perhaps 20 people for 30 days, medical supplies that could handle routine injuries, but nothing serious. Limited clean water and shelter that would accommodate maybe 30 of the 50 simulated survivors comfortably. After an hour of assessment, they regrouped in the central square. It's impossible, Wellington stated flatly. We can't keep 50 people alive for 30 days with these resources. Not all of them anyway. So what are we supposed to do? Barnes asked. Draw straws for who gets to eat? Alex frowned, remembering Zixon's warning about the test being designed to probe human ethics. I think that's exactly what they expect us to do. Start making decisions about who lives and who dies. Well, I'm not playing that game, Ali declared firmly. If this is a test of human ethics, then we show them what human ethics actually look like. Which is, Kim prompted. We find a way to save everyone, Alex said, a determined expression settling on his face. Because that's what humans do. 5. And 1 or 2 hours later, the aliens returned to find the human settlement transformed. Instead of the scattered collection of individual dwellings, the buildings had been rearranged and in some cases dismantled to create communal living spaces that accommodated all 50 holographic inhabitants. Gardens had been planted using seeds found among the supplies. A sophisticated water filtration system had been constructed from available materials. The medical supplies had been augmented with local plants that the team had identified as having medicinal properties. Most surprisingly, the holographic inhabitants were all actively engaged in various tasks: maintaining the gardens, operating the water system, constructing additional shelters, or caring for those who were ill or injured. Tikvex approached Alex, who was directing a group of holographic children in collecting specific plants from the edge of the settlement. This is unexpected, the alien admitted, mandibles clicking rapidly. What is? Alex asked innocently. Your approach to the resource allocation problem, Tikvex replied. Our projections indicated that the optimal solution would involve prioritizing certain individuals based on their survival value to the group. Yet, you appear to have implemented a strategy that attempts to preserve all 50 inhabitants. That's right, Alex confirmed. Because there's no such thing as optimal when you're deciding who lives and who dies. That's not how humans work. At least not the best of us. But your supplies are demonstrably insufficient, Tikvex insisted, gesturing to the settlement. Our calculations were based on using the resources exactly as provided, Alex interrupted. We didn't do that. We adapted. We found ways to stretch what we had to grow more food, to purify more water, to make every person contribute to the survival of the group. Zixna had joined them now, her compound eyes shifting through hues that Alex couldn't quite interpret. You turned it into a cooperative effort, she observed. Every individual has a role. That's also how humans work, Alex explained. We're social creatures. We survive together or not at all. But surely some individuals are more valuable than others in a survival situation. Tikvek pressed. The young, the elderly, the injured. They consume resources while contributing little. Alex felt a flash of anger but controlled it. Value isn't just about immediate contribution. The elderly have knowledge and experience. The young are our future. The injured today might be our strongest tomorrow. Every human life has inherent worth. That's a principle worth defending, even in a simulation. Tikvex and Zixna exchanged a look that Alex couldn't decipher. Very well, Tikvex said finally. We will now accelerate the simulation to model the 30-day period based on your implemented strategy. A strange shimmer passed through the simulated settlement as the time acceleration began. The humans watched anxiously as holographic days passed in minutes, the simulated inhabitants carrying out the tasks and systems they'd established. 20 simulated days in their carefully constructed water filtration system failed unexpectedly. 3 simulated days later, a stored food cache was discovered to have spoiled. By day 28, medical supplies were critically low as an unexpected illness spread through the population. Yet, as the simulation concluded on day 30, all 50 holographic inhabitants were still alive. Many were hungry, some were sick, and all were exhausted, but they had survived. The aliens observed the final status in silence, their various physiologies making it difficult for Alex to gauge their reactions. Finally, Tikvek spoke. The simulation parameters included several cascading failure scenarios designed to force difficult allocation decisions. You were not supposed to be able to keep everyone alive. Yeah. Well, Allie said with a shrug. Humans have a nasty habit of doing things we're not supposed to be able to do. Your solution was inefficient, noted the rocky, crystalline alien who had observed their camouflage. Test the previous day. Many resources were wasted on individuals who contributed minimally to group survival. If you define efficiency as maximum output for minimum input, then sure, Barnes retorted. But if you define it as achieving your objective with available resources, then I'd say we were pretty damn efficient. Our objective was to keep everyone alive, and we did at great cost, the alien pointed out. No cost is too great when it comes to saving lives, Kim replied firmly. That's a core human value. Zixna stepped forward, her compound eyes now glowing, with what appeared to be an intense blue light. I believe, she said, addressing the other aliens, that we have our answer regarding Protocol 18. She turned to the humans. You have demonstrated precisely what I hoped you would. And what's that? Alex asked. That humanity's greatest resource is not your technology, your biology, or even your adaptability, she replied. It is your unwillingness to accept failure when lives are at stake. Your refusal to sacrifice some for the benefit of others. Your what is your term? Stubborn optimism. We just call it being human, Wellington said simply. Tikve made a gesture, and the holographic settlement and its inhabitants disappeared, leaving them standing in the empty simulation deck. Protocol 18 is concluded, he announced formally. The results will be incorporated into humanity's overall assessment. Protocol 19 will commence tomorrow at 0800 hours. As the aliens filed out, Zixna lingered behind. You did well, she told Alex quietly. Better than expected. Thanks for the warning, he replied. Though I'm not sure it changed what we would have done anyway. That, Zixna said, mandibles spreading in what he now recognized as a smile, is precisely why I gave it to you. 1 week and 15 increasingly bizarre. Assessment protocols later, the human team stood before the full Confederation observation panel for their final evaluation. They had been tested on everything from problem-solving under extreme conditions to cultural adaptability to emergency response scenarios. Some tests they'd passed with flying colors, others they'd barely scraped through. The final evaluation chamber was an imposing amphitheater-like room with tiered seating occupied by representatives of at least 30 different alien species. Alex and his team stood in the center, feeling very much like specimens under a microscope. Representatives of Earth, Tikvex began formally, his voice amplified throughout the chamber. You have now completed all 33 required assessment protocols for Confederation membership consideration. The observation panel will now deliver its evaluation. Alex exchanged nervous glances with his teammates. They'd been told nothing about how. They'd performed overall, and Zixina had been conspicuously absent for the past 24 hours. A tall, spindly alien with multiple eye talks and what appeared to be a cybernetic exoskeleton rose from the panel. "I am Zelto, Chief Evaluator of the Confederation Security Council," it announced in a surprisingly melodious voice. "The results of the human assessment protocols have been unprecedented." Alex wasn't sure if that was good or bad. "In some areas," Zelto continued, "humanity displayed remarkable ingenuity and adaptability. Protocol 47B, the camouflage assessment, revealed an unexpected ability to utilize primitive methods to defeat advanced technology." Ali suppressed a snort at the mention of their mud-covered escapade. Protocol 18, the resource allocation exercise, demonstrated an admirable, if irrational, commitment to preserving all lives, regardless of efficiency considerations. "Thank you," Barnes whispered uncertainly. However, Zaleth's tone darkened slightly. Other protocols revealed concerning tendencies. Protocol 22, the cultural integration simulation, exposed your species' stubborn attachment to your own customs, even when they prove maladaptive. Protocol 29, the threat response assessment, revealed an alarming propensity for aggressive solutions when diplomatic options were available. Wellington shifted uncomfortably beside Alex. The threat response assessment had involved a simulated first contact with a potentially hostile species. Wellington, a former Marine with combat experience in 3 different war zones, had perhaps been a bit too quick to suggest a show of force. "Furthermore," Zelto continued, "your response to Protocol 31, the technological ethics paradigm, suggests that humanity lacks the necessary guardrails to prevent self-destruction should you gain access to Confederation-level technology." Kim Winstrow, Protocol 31, had presented them with increasingly tempting technological advancements paired with increasingly severe ethical dilemmas. She had perhaps unwisely suggested they could probably figure out the ethical stuff later when presented with the possibility of unlimited clean energy that had a small chance of accidentally creating a black hole. In summary, Zelto concluded, "The Confederation Evaluation Panel finds humanity to be inconsistent. You display both the qualities we most value and those we most fear. You are simultaneously primitive and insightful, violent and compassionate, reckless and cautious." "So, what does that mean for Earth's membership application?" Alex asked when it became clear Zelto had finished speaking. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the alien observers. "It means," came a familiar voice from the side of the chamber, "that humanity has presented the Confederation with a unique challenge." Zixna stepped forward, taking a position beside Zelto. Alex was surprised to see that she was now wearing formal regalia that marked her as significantly higher ranking than he'd been led to believe. "Observer Zixna," Tikvex acknowledged with a respectful lowering of his mandibles. "The panel recognizes your expertise in human affairs." "Then perhaps the panel will also recognize my recommendation," Zixna replied, her compound eyes fixed on the 5 humans. "Humanity is not ready for full Confederation membership." Alex felt his heart sink. "But neither should they be excluded entirely," she continued. "I propose a modified integration protocol. Humanity will be granted probationary membership status with controlled access to Confederation technology and knowledge. A permanent observation mission will remain on Earth to monitor development and provide guidance." Murmurs spread through the alien representatives. An unprecedented suggestion, Zelto noted, yet perhaps appropriate for an unprecedented species. A brief discussion followed among the panel members, conducted in a variety of languages that the translator implants struggled to keep up with. Finally, Zelto raised an appendage for silence. "The panel has reached a consensus," the alien announced. "Humanity will be granted probationary membership status as recommended by Observer Zixna. The terms and conditions will be formalized and presented to Earth's governing bodies for ratification." Alex exhaled a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. It wasn't full membership, but it was a start. A foot in the door of an interstellar community that could open up possibilities beyond imagination. Tikvek approached the human team as the chamber began to empty. "I believe congratulations are in order," he said, mandibles clicking in what Alex had come to recognize as a gesture of respect. Few species achieve even probationary status on their first evaluation. Thanks, Alex replied, still processing the outcome. I think you should be proud, Zixna added, joining them. Your performance during the assessments was illuminating. I'm curious about something, Barnes said, addressing Zixna directly. If you don't mind me asking, what was your real role in all this? You weren't just a regular observer, were you? Zixna's compound eyes shifted to a hue that Alex had never seen before. Perceptive, she acknowledged. I hold the position of Xenological Integration Specialist on the Confederation High Council. My assignment was to conduct a more nuanced evaluation of humanity than the standard protocols allow. So, you were spying on us? O'Malley translated bluntly. I prefer conducting immersive anthropological research, Zixna replied, her translator conveying a hint of amusement. But essentially, yes. And what did you learn? Wellington asked. Zixna seemed to consider the question carefully before responding. I learned that humanity is dangerous, she said finally, causing the humans to tense. But not in the way many in the Confederation feared. You are dangerous, not because you are inherently violent or destructive, though you can be both. You are dangerous because you refuse to accept limitations. Is that a bad thing? Kim questioned. It is an unpredictable thing, Zixna clarified. The universe is governed by limitations, resources, physics, biology. Most species accept these boundaries and build their civilizations within them. Humans see limitations as challenges to overcome rather than parameters to respect, and that scares the Confederation, Alex surmised. It concerns us, Tex corrected, but it also intrigues us. Your species' refusal to accept the impossible has led to remarkably rapid development. In a mere few thousand years, you've progressed from simple tools to rudimentary space travel. Just imagine what we could do with a few thousand more, Barnes said with a grin. Indeed, Zixna replied, mandibles clicking softly. That is precisely what both excites and alarms the Confederation. 6 months later, Alex stood on the newly constructed Confederation Embassy Terrace in Geneva, watching as alien diplomats mingled with human officials. The probationary membership agreement had been signed 3 months ago, and already Earth was experiencing the first tentative benefits. Limited medical technology transfers, educational exchanges, and the establishment of diplomatic relations with 17 different spacefaring species. Quite a view, isn't it? Came a familiar voice behind him. Alex turned to find Zixna approaching, her exoskeletal armor gleaming in the sunset light. Ambassador Zixna? He greeted her with a smile. Or should I say High Counselor now? Ambassador will suffice, she replied, coming to stand beside him at the railing. The High Council felt I had developed a certain expertise regarding humans that made me the logical choice for this posting. Lucky us, Alex said, raising his champagne glass in a small toast. They stood in companionable silence for a moment, watching the eclectic gathering below. I received my new assignment today, Alex mentioned. Eventually, I'll be heading up security for the first human delegation to visit the Confederation homeworlds. An important responsibility, Zixna noted. The impression your delegation makes will significantly influence humanity's path to full membership. No pressure, right? Alex chuckled. Just the future of human-alien relations resting on us not making complete fools of ourselves after watching 5 humans covered in mud evade the Confederation's most advanced scanning technology for 4 hours, Zixna replied, her mandibles spreading in what Alex now knew was her species' version of a smile. I have a certain confidence in your ability to adapt to unexpected situations. Alex laughed. I still can't believe that worked. Allie's mud pit maneuver has already become legendary in military circles, by the way. They're actually teaching it in Special Forces training now. A perfect example of what makes your species unique, Zixna observed. You take the primitive and make it innovative. You find strength in what other species would consider weaknesses. Speaking of other species, Alex said, changing the subject as a thought occurred to him, there's something I've been meaning to ask you. During our assessments, you mentioned species like the Quarrens with their chameleonic abilities and the Rheala with their phase shifting. Why didn't we meet any of them? Zixna's compound eyes shifted colors slightly. You did, in a manner of speaking. Representatives of all major Confederation species observed your assessments, though many maintained a certain distance. They were afraid of us, Alex translated. Even with all their advanced abilities and technology. Perhaps not afraid, Zixna corrected gently. Cautious. There is a difference. You said that before, Alex recalled. I'm still not sure I see it. Fear is irrational, Lieutenant Mercer. Caution is prudent. Zixna gestured toward the gathering below. Look at what is happening here. Species that evolved on worlds separated by thousands of light years with entirely different biochemistries, evolutionary paths, and cultural frameworks attempting to communicate, to understand one another, to coexist. It is unprecedented in the history of the galaxy. When you put it that way, a little caution seems reasonable, Alex admitted. Indeed. Yet despite this caution, the Confederation has welcomed humanity, albeit on a probationary basis. Do you know why? Alex shrugged. Our charming personalities, our skill with mud. Zixna made a sound that the translator interpreted as laughter. Not precisely. It is because of what you demonstrated in Protocol 18, the resource allocation test, that we refuse to let people die if there's any way to prevent it. That you refuse to accept failure as inevitable, Zixna corrected. The Confederation has existed for over 12,000 of your years. In that time, we have encountered numerous challenges that threatened our existence. Resource scarcity, environmental collapse, interspecies conflict. Each time we have found a way to survive, to continue. But recently we have faced new threats that our traditional approaches cannot address. What kind of threats? Alex asked, suddenly serious. Zixna's compound eyes darkened. The kind that require a species that does not recognize the concept of impossible. The kind that need a perspective that sees limitations as challenges rather than boundaries. You're saying you need humans because we're too stubborn to know when to quit. Alex summarized with a slight smile. In your species, that we have perhaps lost over millennia of stability, the drive to overcome rather than adapt, to challenge rather than accept. She turned to face him directly. Your delegation's visit to the Confederation homeworlds is not merely a diplomatic formality, Lieutenant Mercer. It is the beginning of a partnership that both our peoples desperately need. Whether they realize it or not, Alex felt the weight of her words settle upon him. No pressure, he repeated, but this time without the humor. Indeed, Zixna agreed. Though, if it eases your mind, I have arranged for your former team to accompany you. Sergeant Barnes, Lieutenant Alley, Specialist Kim, and Corporal Wellington have all been assigned to the delegation. The Mud Squad rides again, Alex grinned. That actually does make me feel better. I thought it might. Zixna said, the Confederation has learned to value your human tendency to form strong social bonds. It is another trait we find intriguing. Below them, the reception was beginning to wind down as the sun disappeared behind the Alps. Earth's first tentative steps into a larger galactic community were being taken, formalized in diplomatic niceties and cultural exchanges. So, Alex said, finishing his champagne, when do we leave for the Confederation homeworlds? Your ship departs in 2 weeks, Zixna replied. I would advise you to prepare thoroughly. The environments you will encounter will be significantly different from Earth. Any advice? Alex asked. Diplomatic protocols I should be aware of, cultural tabos to avoid. Zixna's compound eyes shifted to a hue that Alex had come to recognize as amusement. Just one piece of advice, Lieutenant Mercer, she said. mandibles clicking softly. Pack plenty of mud. Weeks later, as their sleek Confederation transport vessel approached the massive space station that served as the organization's central administrative hub, Alex found himself once again surrounded by his team. The five, humans who had somewhat improbably helped secure Earth's probationary membership through a combination of stubbornness, creativity, and liberal application of forest floor sediment. "Would you look at that?" O'Malley breathed, staring out the viewport at the immense structure before them. It's like someone took New York, Tokyo, and Dubai, rolled them together, and stuck them in space. The Confederation hub was indeed impressive. A sprawling complex of interconnected modules, domes, and spires that stretched for kilometers in every direction. Ships of various alien designs docked at its numerous ports, and the entire structure pulsed with lights that created patterns too, complex for human eyes to fully appreciate. "I feel like I should be more nervous," Barnes commented, adjusting her formal diplomatic uniform. "But after everything we've been through, this just feels like the next logical step." "I'm plenty nervous," Wellington admitted. "We're about to be the first humans to set foot on the political center of galactic civilization. That's a lot of pressure." "Just remember," Kim said with a mischievous smile, "if all else fails, we can always strip down and cover ourselves in whatever alien mud they have around here." They laughed, the shared joke easing the tension as the ship began its final approach to one of the larger docking bays. "Lieutenant Mercer," came the voice of the ship's Confederation pilot over the intercom. "Please, prepare your team for arrival. The Confederation High Council has arranged a formal reception in the Grand Concourse." "Acknowledged," Alex replied. He turned to his team, suddenly serious. "All right, people. This is it. Whatever happens in there, remember, we're representing all of humanity now. Let's try not to start any interstellar incidents, at least not on the first day," Allie added with a wink. The ship docked with a gentle shudder, and after a series of mechanical noises, the main hatch began to open. Alex and his team formed up in the precise arrangement they'd been drilling for weeks. A formal diplomatic formation that Zixna had assured them would be recognized and appreciated by the Confederation representatives. As the hatch fully opened, they were greeted by a sight none of them had expected. Lining the walkway from their ship to the Grand Concourse were representatives of dozens of alien species, each one standing at formal attention, and each one, from the insectoid tick Vex's people to the gelatinous blob creatures to the towering crystalline beings, was covered in some form of their native equivalent of mud. Alex blinked in confusion, then broke into a wide grin as he spotted Zixna at the end of the walkway, her exoskeletal armor deliberately smeared with what appeared to be a bluish clay. Beside her stood Zelto and other members of the High Council, similarly adorned. "What in the world?" Barnes whispered, clearly fighting back laughter. The humans exchanged bewildered glances before Alex finally led them down the walkway. As they approached Zixna, he could see her compound eyes shifting through colors he'd come to recognize as amusement and pride. "Hi, Counselor Zixna." Alex greeted her formally, struggling to maintain his composure. "On behalf of Earth, we are honored by unique reception." "The honor is ours, Lieutenant Mercer," Zixna replied, her translator conveying perfect diplomatic formality, despite her mud-covered appearance. The Confederation High Council felt it appropriate to honor humanity's first formal delegation by adopting what we understand to be one of your species' most ancient and effective traditions. "Covering yourselves in mud," Wellington clarified, his voice strained with the effort of not laughing. "Adaptive camouflage utilizing indigenous materials," Zelto corrected seriously. "A profound demonstration of your species' ingenuity that deeply impressed the Confederation evaluation panel." Alex caught Zix's eye and saw the subtle shift in her compound eyes that confirmed his suspicion. This was her doing, a gesture both diplomatic and mischievous. "We are deeply moved by this tribute," Alex managed, somehow maintaining his diplomatic demeanor. Earth thanks you for this honor. As the formal greetings continued and the delegation was gradually led into the grand concourse for the official reception, Ali leaned close to Alex. So, he whispered, this is galactic diplomacy, huh? Bunch of advanced aliens playing in the mud to make us feel welcome. Apparently, Alex replied quietly. Humanity. Yeah, Ali said with a grin. Ahead of them, the vast grand concourse opened up, a massive space filled with representatives of civilizations that had been traversing the stars while humans were still figuring out agriculture. Advanced beings with technologies beyond Earth's wildest dreams and evolutionary adaptations that defied human biology. Ancient, powerful, wise species that had built a thriving interstellar community spanning thousands of worlds, all of them covered in mud in honor of the primitive apes from the third rock around an unremarkable yellow star. The strange, stubborn creatures who refused to accept the impossible. As Alex led his team into that grand assembly, he couldn't help but feel that humanity's future among the stars was going to be very interesting indeed. The end.